John. President Bush, our beloved commander-in-chief during 9/11, didn't he tell us that Islam's a religion of peace?
He did. And I did it because through a series of cases that I was working, came to understand very deeply the massive jihadi network we have here in the United States. And what I was seeing as an agent were that the leaders of the organizations, of the Islamic organizations that were part of the jihadi network, the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, Al-Qaeda network here, were actually interfacing with government leaders and advising them on how to proceed in the war on terror, as it was called. So we were being advised by the enemy on how to investigate and deal with the enemy. And that's why I started the training. And I will tell you, I still have all the after-action reports from that, and all the students, whether it was we had an assistant U.S. attorney, we had FBI, CIA, DHS, we had local state police from all over the D.C. area, and those kinds of people. And they all said everybody needs to know this, in law enforcement, the intelligence network. And here's the summary of what I would say, and this is for your audience, is that in 2008, the largest terrorism financing and Hamas trial in American history was adjudicated. It's called the U.S. versus Holy Land Foundation, Dallas, Texas, 2008. The evidence, which was a 15-year FBI investigation, the evidence that was revealed during the case demonstrates that the most prominent Islamic organizations in the United States and North America are a part of the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, jihadi network here. And the leaders of those organizations, whether it's the Islamic Society North America, Muslim Students Association, Muslim American Society, the leaders are the ones working with our FBI, Pentagon, DHS, CIA, State Department, national security staffs. And in fact, you can, and I do, when I brief, whether it's a four-star general or local state legislator or local police, you can look at our policy for domestic terrorism and on the international level, how we deal with this, and you can track it right back to these Muslim Brotherhood organizations, is that they write the policy and say, look, this is offensive to Muslims, this is how you need to do it, and we have done it. And this has brought us to a place where you have literally, we have over 2,200 Islamic centers and mosques in the United States. The vast majority of them are part of this network. They're hostile.
Okay, hang on for a second. Slow down. I want to be very specific about this. There's 2,200 Islamic centers in the United States, right? That's either mosques or Islamic centers, 2,200. Now, give me the evidence you've got to say that they're hostile, because they're part of what network?
They're part of the Muslim Brotherhood network, the majority of them. Over 75% of them. You can look at their property records. They're owned by the North American Islamic Trust, which is the bank for the Muslim Brotherhood here, whose own internal documents entered into evidence in the largest terrorism financing trial in American history say that the purpose of this network is to wage civilization jihad until the entire world, but specifically the United States is under Sharia law, and the Islamic State is established here. And so the question I ask people, law enforcement, specifically, the evidence revealed that the Islamic Society of North America, the largest Muslim Brotherhood organization here, that it is in fact, per the evidence in the case, a Hamas funding entity, which is a terrorism, a designated terrorist organization, and the leadership of ISNA works with the Secretary of State, the previous 4 Secretaries of State, briefs the FBI and the CIA, works with the national security staff, and the previous president of ISNA, Mohammed Majid, works very closely with the White House and sits on the Homeland Security Advisory Committee with a secret clearance. This is the kind of operation these guys are doing here. So if you look at the results of that, of these organizations and the Muslim Brotherhood Islamic centers, and just back up this incident, where did they attend? The Islamic Center of Riverside, a Muslim Brotherhood center. The Boston bombers are from the Islamic Society of Boston, a subsidiary of ISNA, founded by the one in Boston, an Al-Qaeda guy who's in prison named Abdurrahman al-Amoudi, who used to be the advisor to President Clinton and Vice President Gore.
How can, by the way, you're talking about something that's so deep, so widespread, getting secret clearances. Before I let you go, John, we're going to have you on many more times, and we're going to get this up on Breitbart today. It almost boggles the mind. I mean, it's not a conspiracy because it's in broad daylight. Just so our audience can come to grips with it, how could this happen? What is the driving force behind this? It sounds even more serious than a fifth column. What has caused this, in your opinion?
Well, not in my opinion. I mean, just my research, when I present this information, including here on this show, I only speak with what I would walk into a court of law with. The evidence is that there's no issue with the amount of evidence. This case, as well as doctrine that the Muslim Brotherhood and the Islamic movement has published, clearly states that their objective, whether it's Al-Qaeda, ISIS, all of them have the same objective, to establish an Islamic State under Sharia. The Muslim Brotherhood's published bylaws in English state that is their purpose, to impose Allah's law, Sharia, in the land, and that they must fight the tyrants and enemies of Allah to establish an Islamic State. And the U.S. government is using this organization, the Muslim Brotherhood, as the liaison between the Muslim community and the U.S. government. That's insane, but that's what we're doing. And these are the only people that we're speaking to as far as the government. And the evidence demonstrates that this is who they are. And this is a fact-based understanding of this threat. And my point is, all these instances, the Fort Hood shooter, the Chattanooga shooter, the Little Rock, Arkansas shooter, the incident in San Bernardino, the stabbing at UC Merced, all these individuals you can trace back to Muslim Brotherhood centers where they were supported and trained. And so just like in Paris, just like in these other instances, we go after, we want to tie it to ISIS or something. But it's part of a much broader movement than just one organization. And that network here is not being touched. The network in Paris that supported that attack is not being touched.
John, we're going to have you. We're going to have you hopefully back on tomorrow and in coming days to get your stuff up. We've got to jump. But John Guandola, John, how can people get more access to your writings and the other things that you have out there? Do you have a website?
UnderstandingTheThreat.com. I've got the book, Raising the Jihadi Generation, which lays all of this out, and a 90-minute DVD, which also in presentation form lays this out.
UnderstandingTheThreat.com. Now, John, one thing before I let you go. The FBI field guy out there is driving me crazy. He's standing up there going, we're trying to figure this out, workplace violence and stuff. Is he have they trained these guys now that they've got to be so politically correct that 2 or 3 days into this, they won't say what's obvious? I mean, that field director, I bang my head on the TV when I see this guy on there.
Let me just, I'll end with this quick little vignette, this quick story. A few years ago, my primary training is a 3-day program for law enforcement, military, government officials. I did one at Headquarters Marine Corps in Arlington, Virginia. There were about 120 people in the room from all the agencies, local state police. We had special forces guys from the military, etc. On the third day, a guy stood up and he said, "John, I've been in the FBI over 14 years. I'm a supervisor in the counterterrorism division at FBI headquarters. And I've never heard the information you're putting out here, and you've demonstrated that it's factually true and this is a real threat." And then he used some very colorful language to describe how angry he was. And then I looked at the audience, keeping in mind who's in the audience, FBI, DHS, CIA, and I said, "Raise your hand if you knew this before you came in here today." 0 hands went up. That right there is the issue. They don't know it. I have briefed very senior people very quietly who are in senior leadership positions inside the government, including 3- and 4-star generals and admirals. They have no idea that this is going on inside the United States because the people advising us are the leaders of the organizations that, per evidence in counterterrorism trials, have been identified as organizations that are Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, Al-Qaeda. That's the problem. They wear suits and they step in front of leaders and say, no, you don't understand. Let me explain it to you. So our leaders have taken what I believe is an unprofessional path to rely on advisors who are necessarily hostile to our system, our war fighting, our way of life. That's the problem.
John Guandola, it's understandingthethreat.com is where you got to go get the information. He's got books, he's got video. He's going to be on this show a lot. John, thank